If you guys have been watching Rich TV Live, you know that I've been talking about stocks for quite some time. And I believe that this is going to affect the stock market. I've been doing a lot of research on Zacks. Zacks.com is a research analyst that does research on companies. And this is getting really bad, guys. Like, this is not a joke. This is very real. Now, at the same time, there are going to be companies that are going to benefit from this. But our breaking news is now that the coronavirus has spread to more than 2,000 people. I believe this number is worse than what they're actually letting us know. And apparently now they are stating that 50 people have died. I believe that these numbers are much higher than what they are telling us. That's why you're seeing this number continues to grow. Another thing that is being told and talked about is that this coronavirus can spread before symptoms show. So essentially what they're saying is when you contact this virus, it stays in you for 5 days before anybody can see signs of it. So just imagine that there's some people that are saying that this started in China in October. We're in January, the end of January. How many people between October and January traveled to China and now have gone back to somewhere else in the world? This is the part that's really concerning for me. They said that when they initially realized that this was an outbreak, what they were doing is when people were coming in and out of the city that was gravely infected, Wuhan, with 11 million people, which is a bigger city than Toronto, the city the size of London, England. When people were coming in and out, the only way for them to test to see if they thought you had this outbreak was to check your temperature. But now it's coming out that if you contacted this illness, this disease, this infection, you would not show any signs or symptoms for 5 days. So how many people could have potentially left that region without anybody knowing that they had symptoms? The numbers could be in the thousands, the tens of thousands. More than 50 people are dead, all in China, as the Wuhan coronavirus continues to spread throughout Asia and the rest of the world. Nearly 2,000 cases have been confirmed in mainland China. The global spread is more than 40 confirmed cases have been identified in 13 places outside mainland China, and nearly 60 million people have been affected by Beijing's attempts to either partially or fully lock down affected cities. I find it a little bit odd that people don't think this is real when you have an entire country on lockdown. We have multiple cities within the biggest populated country in the world on lockdown, but yet people think that this isn't real. This is very real. This is very scary, and this is very concerning. Even the president, Xi Jinping, has put out essentially a state of emergency saying that this is spreading very quickly. This is very, very concerning. Wow. A 9-month-old baby is among Beijing's new confirmed cases. This is spreading, and it doesn't have any prejudice. It doesn't care who you are, how old you are, where you are. Beijing now has 68 confirmed cases of Wuhan coronavirus, including a 9-month-old, according to the city's municipal health authority. The baby is the youngest known case to be confirmed so far. Wow. So through this, there are going to be some opportunities that will be generated. And because we talk about stocks, I want to talk to you about some companies that I think will benefit from this. The spread of a contagious disease in China weighed heavily on several companies, especially those with considerable revenue exposure to the Asian country. The outbreak of coronavirus in China claimed 6 lives and almost 300 have been infected. This was just a few days ago. See how the numbers have grown? This was January 22nd on Zacks Research. So that number of 6 dead is now 50. And the number of people infected has grown from 300 to 2,000, which is what they are reporting. And if you look at videos showing what's going on in China, there's tens of thousands of people, maybe more, maybe hundreds of thousands of people waiting to be tested. So what is the real number? The virus has certainly raised quite an alarm, affecting respiratory organs, quite similar to SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome. Lest we forget SARS, which erupted in 2002, resulted in the death of 800 and triggered a severe economic slump that fettered global stocks. And I believe this will be similar. This will affect the market. It has already affected the market, and I believe it will continue to affect the market this week. So what we need to do is we need to try to identify which companies could potentially benefit from this. And I've got a list of them to share with you guys. With so many people affected ahead of the Lunar New Year holiday, travel-related stocks were hit hard. Remember, we talked about this yesterday, travel stocks. After all, market pundits fear possible contagion as hundreds of millions of passengers are expected to travel during the upcoming holiday season. Travel-related stocks decline aggravated after the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recently confirmed that one of the individuals flying back to the United States from China was diagnosed with coronavirus. Stocks that were hit hard. Airline stocks were collectively affected as the Dow Jones Transportation Average slipped 1.9% on January 22nd. Individually, shares of United Airlines Holdings, Delta Airlines, and American Airlines Group dropped 5.4%, 4.1%, and 4.4% respectively because they shut down flights. That's going to put a huge damper on revenue. In one of the most heavily populated, if not the most heavily populated region in the world. At the same time, shares of Booking Holdings, Expedia Group, and TripAdvisor declined 3.5%, 1.9%, and 1.6% respectively. In fact, US-listed Shanghai-based Trip.com group saw its shares tank 9.3%, the steepest decline among stocks listed on the Invesco Golden Dragon China Exchange Traded Fund that tracks companies which derive most of their revenue from China. By the way, manufacturers of luxury items also felt the heat. After all, such companies rely heavily on outlays by Chinese tourists, notably shares of Estee Lauder companies, Coty, and Hennessy Louis Vuitton, S&E shed 1.1%, 2%, and 2.3% respectively. Cruise operators also among the worst hit. Shares of Royal Caribbean Cruises, Carnival Corp, and Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings lost 4.7%, 2.6%, and 3.2% respectively. After all, Royal Caribbean, Carnival, and Norwegian had generated 9%, 3%, and 2% of their respective revenues from China over the last 12 months. This is affecting the entire world. Now, guys, we got 57 people here and only 22 likes. We got to up that game. We got to up that game. We got to up that game. Now, guys, we have survived so far the cannabis crash of 2019. We were able to survive that. The question, will we survive? Will we survive the coronavirus of 2019, 2020? I might have to make a new shirt just for this virus. Wow. Talking about revenue exposure, energy giant Chevron also saw its shares slide 1.7%. This is because Chevron's revenue exposure to China is about 27%. Wow, that's big. Boeing also took a beating. Boeing shares fell 3.3% as the manufacturer or commercial jetliner had a slightly more than 13% revenue exposure to China, according to FactSet. Overall, the Dow Jones fell 0.5% since the combined exposure of the components in the blue chip index is 7.8%, added FactSet. Outside the United States, most of the revenues generated by Dow components are from China. This is going to affect the market greatly. Now, I got a list of companies that I think are going to benefit from this. So write these down, guys. These guys could be huge winners this week. And you know that I really love to find the winners. And this is on Zacks Research. And these guys are one of the biggest analyzers of stocks in the world and definitely on Wall Street. So I got some picks that they believe are going to benefit and I believe can benefit greatly. However, not everyone has been subjected to the decline. Let us take a look at the potential gainers from the spread of the virus. Here we go. Experimental vaccine stocks and biotech players gain. Obviously, companies that have a cure, a vaccine, are going to benefit from this because they're the ones that potentially could solve this problem and their shares could surge. Vaccine manufacturers have gained sharply on concerns over the new virus. Novavax Inc., NVAX, a late stage NVAX. Here we go. Here's the first one. Sorry. NVAX. Novavax. A late-stage biotechnology company has saw its shares soar 72% on January 21st. The company is primarily manufacturing 2 late-stage vaccines for the flu and various other infectious diseases. Another nano biopharmaceutical company, Nanoviricides Inc., witnessed